Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum. This is mentor Faiza Shaikh. I hopefully you are very well. So I am also happy and well here. So we have discussed the Elizabethan dramatist in the previous videos, last video. But now going to discuss the Puritan period. Puritan period basically start from the poetry. Basically, this age between Elizabethan and Restoration period is not giving any suitable political title. And it is also covers the reign of James I and the Charles I as well as the Commonwealth period. But since its literature was dominated by the Milton and religious movement Puritanisms, we can call this period at the age of Milton or the Puritan age. So, to call this period as decadent or the Elizabethan age is hardly justified, as the drama's certainty declined. Tragedy degenerated into the horror plays, come to become insignificant as less common among the people of the age. The decline is poetry is justified only the metaphysical poetry. It is largely counterbalanced by the Milton's magnificent poetry and that of the civilian cavalier poets. The performance in the prose this age is even greater than the Elizabethan age proper. The observed remarkable prose were writers and writings. The strong and spontaneous imaginations of the Elizabethan age gave place to learning, deliberations, and the melancholy reflection, and it is inspiration to intellectuality, imitation, and the exaggerations. At the dramatist of this age followed either Shakespeare or Ben Jonson. The poet of this age followed of the Spenser, Ben Jonson, and John Donne. The influence of the Spenser was supreme during the reign of the James, but got in with his the death remained and only in Milton's. Ben Jonson and Donne influenced the Caroline poets as called from the Latin from the Charles and the Commonwealth of the periods because they are very intelligent and supreme poets. So the Spenserians are descriptive while the schools of Ben Jonson and Donne are lyrical. Spenserian Giles Fletcher, Phineas Fletcher, Williams Brown, and George White. The brothers Giles Fletcher and Phineas Fletcher were both Cambridge men and the pastors. They acknowledged Spenser's as their master and wrote long allegorical poems, which was modified and Spenserian stanzas. Giles Christie, Victory and the Triumphs compete Milton's in the matter, but in manner it is brilliant work of the Spenser. Phineas Fletcher, Purple Island is a much longer but prosy allegory of the human's body. Other pair, Brownie and Wyther, were Oxford men having a strong and unities with Spenser's, though they did not write to Spenserian stanza. They wrote in loose couplets, mostly octosyllable, and the pioneer of the classical age, Denham and the Waller, condemned these loose couples and produced their own correct smooth couples. Both Brownie and Wyther wrote delightful pastoral poems which links them up with the lake of poets. They had love for nature and countryside life. The schools of Ben Jonson's and Donne. The important thing noticed in the poetry, the Caroline period, is the predominance of the lyric. With the exceptions of Milton's epic, there are not great poems. Yet there were not some ambitious poets and designed poems or epics such as the Avenues and the Gondibra, Cowley Davids and the Chamberlains. These are most important work, but they are failure. There is no departure from Elizabethan era, whose inspiration was lyrical poet. It becomes realistic and more common among the poets of this age. Caroline lyric as Elizabethan consist, but in spite of the consist, the lyric on the whole is simpler, cleaner, smoother, and more graceful. The lyric writers fall into the groups according as the followed Ben Jonson and Donne. In some cases, poets mingles both of these. Generally speaking, the writer secular lyric cavalier. So, as they are called, who are followers Ben Jonson's and the writers of religious lyric, and metaphysical lyrics who are followers of John Donne's, Ben Jonson and Cavalier poets. Ben Jonson, who along with the dramatist was also writer of the charming lyrics, being devoted to classic, he followed the pattern of Horace and Virgil. He loved order and regularity in the form of the simplicity and clarity in the sense. But he was not without romantic feelings. His classical and restrained and careful craftsman exerted of healthy influence of his followers to the Cavalier lyrist. Their lyrics are simple, avoiding extremes over the ornaments of Spencer's on one side and turned wit and obscurity of tone. In spirit, they were not concerned and religious and were followers of the hedonistic philosophy. Craftsman exerted of healthy influence of his followers to the Cavalier lyrist. Their lyrics are simple, avoiding extremes over the ornaments of Spencer's on one side and turned wit and obscurity of tone. In spirit, they were not concerned and religious and were followers of the hedonistic philosophy. Drink and the merry, for tomorrow you will die. So they sang rhyme, women's and songs. Herrick, Cario, Suckling, and Lovelace. The greatest and most popular of the Cavalier lyrists was Herrick. His fame depends on the secular poet, which appeared in the collection called the Hesperides. Basically, this also contains some Divine's poems. His most famous poem, Katina Going to Maying. These poems are the expressions of human life and joy. Carry through mainly the followers of Ben Jonson also shows influence of John Donne in the sum of these extravagant conceits. He had refined and dashing taste and talented of the poetry. He is now remembered chiefly for some of these songs. Suckling and Lovelace are mentioned together because of the similarity of the fate and the circumstances they faced. Both were staunch royalists and drained themselves from royalist caste. Both of them were very rich, brilliant, and witty. Suckling was spendthrift and liberal, while Lovelace was the fountain of the beauty and virtues too. None of them was a serious poet. Suckling poetry is full of fun and frivolity. Lovelace, who was bit and serious then. Suckling his was immorality by the couples of short as which are serious and sincere. One of his poems, the Lucasta, Going to Wars. Andrew Marvell Milton, assistant as Latin secretary in the Cromwell government, is also used to this group because of his sympathy with Cavalier poets. His poetry combines the clarity of the grace of the Ben Jonson with the metaphysical wit of John Donne. This is best shown in his poem To the Cow Mistress. Donne and the Metaphysical School of Poetry, John Donne. Basically, John Donne has been more influential even than Johnson. He rose to be Dean of St. Paul and the great preacher of the sermons. His early poems are outspokenly erotic, concerning sexual feelings and the sensual published. His divine poems are equally passionate in expressing his complex and deep religions of the emotions. Donne was rebellion to Spencerian poetry in meter as well as the manner. For him, Spencer, chivalric and the patronic was deceiving and insincere, and they treated loves and the physical appetite honest and the realistic. He rejected the Spencer heavenly decorative language and the monotonous music of his stanza and adopted of the colloquial language with the rough and complicated meter. John Donne aimed to bring originality in poetry, but he could have only novelty. He possessed great gift, and his poetic thoughts are deeply embedded in the philosophical thoughts and subtly. It was this habit of the philosophizing that throughout the leading to the strange, dim, and expected vistas of thought and the earned him his title of the metaphysical. Ecstasy is a good example for it. Critics are of the opinion that the key Donne poetry lies in the peculiar makeup of his personality. He was intensely, even violently passionate, and was at the same time giving to intense and melancholic mediation. He was the victim of the poetry of the sensibility. So next, he is the metaphysical poet. The newness of Donne poetry through a strongly appealed whole generation from 1630 to 1660. It was widely practiced, even by secular cavalier poets. The direct descendants of the Donne were religious poetic like Herbert Sgracio and Vaughans and others. So, the pioneer of classical Cowley, Denham, and the Waller, they are very important poets. These are excessive affection and fanaticisms and concentricities of the Donne and his metaphysical provoked reaction which led to the classical in the next stage. Though Ben Jonson was the real founder of classicism, but Laker's smoother so honors classicisms were the earned by three poets mentioned above. They are linked between the assistance and new classical age. They are pioneer of the new age, Dryden and the pop. So these are very important and magnificent and dominant poets of this era. So in this video I have been told you about the Puritan poetry, and that is was the first part of the Puritan age, and inshallah in the next video discuss the second part of the Puritan age and discuss the different writers. They are belong to the Puritan age, especially Milton. John Milton, he was one of the dominant member of the second era. So we'll discuss in the next video. Till you will stay here and like, subscribe and share my videos, inshallah. I hopefully you will do it very in the very and properly way. इजाज़त दीजिए, अल्लाह हाफिज़।